Now you just have to say, welcome to Bang & Olufsen Technical Forum. My name is Geoff.
Sounds a bit like an AA meeting. My name is Geoff.
My name is Geoff.
Hi, Geoff.
Hi, Geoff. Hej, og velkommen til Bang & Olufsen Teknisk Forum, BOTF. Vi sidder i dag med Geoff, som vi har fået lov til at have en lille snak med. Welcome to the channel, Geoff.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us here. And I've just been having a demo in the demo room of some 90s, and that's gonna be an expensive visit. So a lot of you guys had some questions for Geoff that you actually wrote into the YouTube channel, so I think I'm just gonna power through.
Yep.
All right.
Go ahead.
And I do have some questions myself.
Okay.
But let's take the viewers first.
Yep.
This is from Wikipedia. If Geoff were to remake the 90s today, would he be able to miniaturize the 90s without losing its sonic capabilities? Or is the size still mostly the function of how big it needs to be this exceptionally capable?
The real answer is that it depends on what you mean by sonic capabilities. If we're talking about directional capabilities, then we have to restrict ourselves to frequency range. So in order to deliver the bass that we're delivering, and in order to be able to control the directivity, the width of the bass, then it has to be that big. Because we have to move enough air, meaning we have to have that many woofers moving that much, and they have to be far enough apart in space to be able to control the directivity. In fact, if we wanted to have a narrow mode down to 20 hertz, then BLAB 90 would have to be twice as big. It's actually too small in some respects. But if we're talking about sonic capabilities, meaning mid-range and high frequencies, then it can be brought down because we're only talking about the top part. So it's really a question of what sonic capabilities means. And what frequency range we're talking about. So it's, I think I'd need to know more in the question to know how to answer better than that.
Okay, regarding to the active room compensation, is there any real difference between the 50s and the 90s? As in, can the 90s do it more efficiently because of the more drivers and counterfires and stuff?
Yeah, the simple answer is no. It's basically the same room compensation in the 50s and the 90s. Of course, the 90s have more capability. We can move more air. So when you're playing loudly, then the BLAB 90s have more headroom available to do more. If you're really playing loudly and you're trying to hold onto the room, then you're asking more from the woofer. And the more capability you have, the further you are away from the limit of the speaker. But if you're playing at a normal level, whatever that means, then effectively the compensation that the two provide are identical.
Okay.
Yep.
So how do you see the collaboration with Bang & Olufsen and Xbox of the new sound products?
I don't see it because I don't have anything to do with that part of the business, you could say. From my point of view, I will need to, whenever the products that I'm working on in the future have anything to do with the Xbox, then I'll have to worry about different things that I normally worry about. Latency is a big thing with gaming. But that means that I just have a different set of parameters that have to be included in the testing or in the consideration when we're doing a product. But I mean, that's from my point of view, whenever we have a product to work on in the listening room, then I have some set of parameters that need to be worried about. It's the same as when we make a television. I worry more about speech intelligibility than when we're making a stereo pair of speakers. So that parameter gets added to the mix. And with gaming, then we just add different parameters into the mix for the product. Okay. So
then there is one guy here. He would like to know a little bit more about your team and your background. How are they working in your team, and are you working with the design team as well?
Well, firstly, I'm on a team. It's not my team. I'm just.
It's called Geoff's team.
Yeah, I'm just the goalie on the team.
Okay.
It's somebody else's team. But yeah, of course, normally when we're working on a speaker, if we just look at the acoustics side, then typically we have 3 people working on it. One is the acoustical engineer, who worries about the physical hardware and the drivers and how big a space is behind the drivers. And that person will also look at the electrical requirements. How much power do we need in the amplifier to move the driver as much as we can? We have the DSP engineer, who is looking at the difference or the relationship between the acoustical performance. So you have a speaker and a microphone. How does it behave out there, out here, and how that can be corrected with the signal processing inside. And then there's a Tonmeister, and there are 2 of us, who are doing the final tuning, but also a lot of the testing on how the speaker behaves in different environments with different kinds of signals. So from the acoustic side, we have 3 people, usually. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's more. That team then interfaces to the design team, usually through the engineers. So that balance between how big the speaker is and how much power we need and how much it can cool itself and how big it is, how small, and how it looks, that relationship is more a question of mechanical engineering, acoustical engineering, and design. So I'll typically stay out of those meetings most of the time. So there's always an interface.
Yeah.
And the truth is that for any given product, there is a team. It's not the acoustics team and the design team and the this team and the that team. There's a BLab 90 team.
Okay.
And for BLab 90, that was 200 people.
Wow.
For example. And that's everything. That's the lawyers looking after the patents and the marketing and the product, everybody. That's unusually big for a product. But there is a team per product, not teams within the company that interface to each other day to day.
Okay. Which stereo speakers from Bang & Olufsen do you think is where you get the best experience when you take price into the contact? And it could be new and it could be old.
I can't answer that question. Because it's really a question of taste and balance of, what do you value for the money? If you like bass, then you shouldn't get those speakers. If you don't like bass, then those speakers are better. I don't actually know how much our products cost out in the stores, to be honest. Because by the time I'm done with the product before it gets to the store, and I don't even know.
You never go to the stores?
Very rarely.
Okay.
Very rarely. I don't even know. In many cases, I don't know the name of the product in the store because we have internal code names. That's an S40 in my head, not a BLab 90. I know it's BLab 90 because it's been 3 years now, but yeah, I still call this an S40 at work. Okay. And people use names like Beovision Harmony, and I don't know which one that is. I don't know if that's the one that does this or it's the one that has that. Because I'm a bit dumb, to be honest. But it really is a question of taste. I mean, I can't recommend a speaker over another speaker any more than I can say you should have sushi instead of pasta.
Definitely pasta.
Okay, pasta it is. I would take sushi, so you're wrong.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Good.
What kind of speakers do you have at home? Do you have an S40 at home?
I have a pair of S40s. My wife told me I wasn't allowed to not buy a pair.
Okay.
Because it was really we call it our third child. We have 2 boys and a pair of S40s. It was...
So you put so much love into these speakers?
It was 8 years of my life.
Wow.
And towards the end, for the last 6 months, that's all I worked on. Normally I'm working on 3, 4, 5 projects at any given moment. And you switch from day to day or hour to hour from those headphones to that speaker. But with BLab 90, it was full-time BLab 90 for at least the last 6 months.
What are you working on now?
I can't tell you that.
Okay. So...
At least 5 projects.
At least 5 projects, okay. Can you give me your top 5 music tracks to test your speakers?
The ones that I use most are I think the 1989 recording of Bird on a Wire by Jennifer Warnes. And I use Black Coffee by Claire Martin from the Lynn Records collection a lot. But the reason is not because those 2 tracks are good for testing speakers. The reason is that I know them really well. So the answer is that the best tracks to use for testing speakers are ones that you know the most.
Yep.
And the ones that you've listened to on the most speakers.
Yep.
If you've only listened to this track on your headphones at home, they might be lying to you, no matter what those headphones are, or your speakers at your house. You might have a different perception of what's really on the disc. Whereas with Bird on a Wire is a good example. I would say on average, I've listened to that track every day since 1989. On lots of speakers and lots of headphones in lots of places. And so if something sounds weird, it's because it doesn't match that average that's built up in my head over the years.
Yeah.
Normally what I do though is I start with those two tracks, and then I don't make any decisions based on what I hear from those two tracks. So if I put on Bird on a Wire and the bass sounds weird, then I'll go to a playlist of bass tracks.
Yep.
And start going through those to see if what I heard in Bird on a Wire holds true for all those other tracks. And if it does, then there's a problem.
Oh, okay.
If it doesn't hold true, then it's just something
So
weird with that track.
it doesn't really have much to do with good recordings, or this is a very cool bass on that track and
No.
the mid-range is very good.
No.
Know your track and then you'll know your speakers.
Sometimes it's even a matter of knowing a bad recording. It's really good to know when you're listening to AC/DC Back in Black that when he hits the snare drum, the hi-hat moves every time the snare drum hits. And if it doesn't do that, then your imaging isn't good enough. It shouldn't do that. But if you can't hear that track doing that, then you need better imaging.
Oh, okay.
So if it doesn't sound bad, it's not good,
Top tip.
for example.
Yeah,
That's
makes
one
sense.
little thing, but
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, okay.
it's knowing what to listen for more than is it a good recording.
Do you think you have reached the top of the line with the S40/BOLAB 90s?
No.
No. So there's still some way to go.
Yeah, there's always somewhere to go.
What is the definition of good sound?
If you like it. Yeah, what's the definition of good wine or good sushi or good pasta? Honestly, people ask me, you know, do I have these speakers at home, is that good? And my answer is always, if you like it, then it's good. I don't have to listen to it. If what you're doing is listening to the music instead of the speakers, then it's good.
Why is it called TrueImage and not True Sound? Is it because of a bad Danish translation? Because we said in Danish it's lydbillede.
Yeah.
So is that because of a Danish translation that's gone bad, or?
Am I allowed to answer this question honestly? It's because we already own the name.
Okay.
And so it made, we really searched, we searched a lot to find out what to call it. And the truth is that we already own this name. And every time we came up with a better name for it, it was taken by some other copyright somewhere else. Okay. And so we went with TrueImage.
All right. I have always,
That's the truth.
I have always said that somebody is really bad at translation.
No.
Okay.
It
But it's good to
actually,
know.
we already owned the name because we were, I think if you go back far enough, we were using it to something to do with video processing. And it comes from that. The name was originally for a video processor, and then we had to come up with a name for the upmixing, downmixing that we were using in the automotive systems.
Yep.
And so we borrowed the name.
Do you ever watch TV?
Very rarely.
Yeah.
Almost never. We just have an antenna up in the attic, so we had to retune all the channels just 2 weeks ago. But honestly, it's very rare for me to sit down and watch television.
What is your source on the BOLAB 90s?
Usually the Oppo.
The Oppo with XLR out?
With XLR and PCM. So if it's a PCM signal, then it switches to the PCM over the SPDIF.
Yeah.
But then if I put in an SACD or play a DSD file, that won't go out on the PCM stream. So it switches over automatically to the XLR, and then the BOLAB 90s will switch automatically when it sees no signal and signal.
Yeah, okay.
So I've just got a dual path set up, and then it looks after itself.
In the forum, we have had a lot of questions about surround sound.
Yes.
And people usually have a 5.1 system.
Yep.
And some people likes, for example, if you take the Eclipse is that one.
That
one. If you take the Harmony, it's that one. Yeah. And both of these TVs has left, center, right channel.
Yep.
So people are, I know that there is no right or wrong way to do it because it depends on the people.
Yep.
I
like the center channel to be the center channel.
Yep.
The left and right will be switched off.
Okay. With an external surround. External system.
Yeah, with the front speakers and the rear speakers.
Okay.
Oh, surround speakers, sorry.
Yep.
That is how I do it, because I think when I do 3 center channels, it sounds
weird.
Odd.
Yep.
But some people like that.
Yep.
I have heard some bird calling somewhere that somebody at this facility somewhere have tried to put, I can't remember if it was surround speakers to the left and right, or something, categorize something else.
Okay. Normally, if I'm doing Eclipse or Harmony with a pair of external fronts and external backs,
Yes.
surrounds,
Yes.
then normally what I'll do is turn on all 3 speakers, and I'll calibrate them the right way first, meaning the right distances and the right levels.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell the TV that the center channel is actually 20 centimeters further away, and I'll bump it up by 1 dB and the other 2 down by 2 dB. And that does 2 things. By telling the TV that that channel is further away, it makes it early
Yeah.
by 20 centimeters.
Yeah.
And then by making it a little bit louder, I'm making a 3 dB difference,
Yeah.
but only up by 1 and down by 2.
Yeah.
What that's doing is the same thing as what you're talking about. It pulls everything into that center driver. It reduces the comb filtering that you get when you say center, 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 and they're all the same. And because it's a little bit early, your brain says, it must be there, and those other 2 are just helping. So what that does is gives you the imaging that you're looking for without the weird comb filter, less of the comb filtering effect, but you still have the power from more drivers to keep up with a big pair of speakers on the outside. So it's a bit of a compromise between nothing and all, and it's somewhere in between. I have tried, if you have no surround speakers, saying left front, right front, center front, and then left surround, right surround.
Yeah.
So you're using the side speakers inside the television as your surround channels.
Yeah.
That doesn't give you, it's not the same as putting surround speakers in, but it does give you those surround channels that aren't just coming from the same place. They're somewhere else.
Ambient.
It gives you the ambience.
Yeah.
It still gives you some sense of spaciousness, and it's not coming from the same place as your external speakers. So that is, I mean, maybe you hate it, maybe you like it, but it's worth a try. The other thing I've done occasionally is when we first started testing BLab, what's it called, BeaVision 11. Yeah, BeaVision 11, one of the tests that I did, or one of the setups that I tried, was to have just the BeaVision 11 in the front, left front, right front, and then a pair of 9s in the back, because back then we didn't have the 20s yet. And what happens then is that the 9s become, or the 20s or whatever you have, they become the subwoofer, because the TV knows. And you get surround channels plus dual subwoofers, and if you don't like having a lot of speakers up in front of you, then you just have the TV. And that worked pretty well as well. Some people think that's a bit weird. Why would you put your big speakers in the back? And the reality is, if you never listen to stereo, or if you do listen to stereo, this doesn't make sense, right? But if you only listen to surround, it kind of makes sense, because you are getting 2 for the price of 1. You're getting 2 subwoofers for the price of an extra pair of speakers, let's say. And that works pretty well. And that would also work with a 3-channel.
Yeah, especially when the TVs are this large now.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And if you don't want this big row of speaker, TV, speaker in the front, then you can always put the big speakers in the back as an option. Try it out. If it if you don't like it, then move them.
Maybe you have a living room where it does make sense to have the stereo perspective in the back.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So the elephant in the room, Atmos. Are we in the near future, or are we going to put Atmos as a TrueImage, and then the TrueImage will do the Atmos upscaling, or do we get a pass-through with Bitstream? Or
well, I can't answer the question because I can't talk about anything that doesn't exist in a store right now. But the big thing to remember, people, when they say Atmos, everybody means something different.
Yeah, I'm talking about Atmos not as ceiling speakers, because Atmos is not ceiling speakers.
It's one part of it.
Yeah, it's object-based surround sound.
Yes, and that's a decoder.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And it also has an up mixer in it. TrueImage is just an up mixer.
Yeah.
Down mixer. I mean, just, I shouldn't say just, but it's an up-mixer, down-mixer. Atmos has an up-mixer, down-mixer in it. It also is a decoder, and that's really what it is. And it's a loudspeaker configuration, and it has some virtualizing, up-firing, side-firing stuff. Of course, I can't say anything about a product that does or does not exist, and will or will not exist in the future. I mean, that's out of the question. But I think the big thing to remember is that you can't put those two things in the same bucket. They're different things, right? And that's the big thing to remember. A lot of people ask me the same question, you know.
I think the reason why people are asking is because Atmos is like a buzzword.
Yes.
It's the same as when DTS-X came out. It was just, whoa, that's the new Aero 3D whatever.
Yep.
So it's a buzzword right now.
Yep.
And especially when Netflix is providing so much content right now with Atmos, Dolby Vision, HDR, whatever. So everybody's asking about it.
Of course. There's a really good article that came out last week in What Hi-Fi, I think it was, which basically said there's too much Atmos. And they were the first ones to say Atmos is great. You know, height speakers, upmixing, all the decoding stuff. Atmos is a good thing. But when you see a phone delivering Atmos to a pair of headphones, that's not Atmos anymore.
That's stupid.
Right? And so we have to be a little bit careful about the buzzword, right? It's like the old days, people said THX, therefore good. And before that it was digital and therefore good. And you know, there's lots of people that use some word, linear phase, therefore good. It's just another word for good. So I really like cautioning people to not jump on the buzzword, the bandwagon. What do you really want when you say Atmos?
Agreed.
Uh-oh, I'm getting a 2-minute warning.
Sure. I have the last question. I know that you're in the speaker point of this business, but we also have a lot of televisions. And since I do think the Avant, which is this one where the speaker comes down, we have had a microphone input. And we have had that since then. And I had it on my clips, I have it on my Harmony. What should I use it for?
Right now, nothing. And if you go back, I think there was once upon a time in the software for the Avant, it could be used to do the speaker calibration, meaning the level and distance.
That was the same with the Beovision 14. It could do the calibration of the...
And I'm not even sure it still can.
Of the speakers. I think it was only SPL and
distance.
In distance,
And true. What we found was that it doesn't work reliably enough to rely on it. And the danger is that if you give that option to somebody,
they will use it.
They will use it and not check it. And if you have the wrong answer, that's worse than doing nothing. It's like the old phrase about, you know, if a person with a watch knows what time it is and a person with two watches never knows. This is the same problem. If you just put in the mic and you do the measurement and it does something and now it's fixed, and it isn't fixed, but you don't know that it's not fixed. So the option is there, and there's, you know, like I said, I can't talk about anything that doesn't exist yet. But what we found is that in more and more cases in the real world, we were finding that it was delivering, instead of the right answer, it was close enough to be believable, but not right enough to be good. And so it was removed on the subsequent televisions. That doesn't mean that it was removed in the software, but the hardware, it may have it, it may not. I don't know, but that is still, you know, sitting there as an option. I guess.
Thank you, Geoff.
No problem. I'd shake your hand, but we're not allowed. So.
High five. Thank you.